Well, hello, friends. Hi, this is Aura Vasquez, your host for today at the Impact Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so pleased today to have a very special guest, somebody that I admire very much, and that is going to share a incredible event that happens every year in Los Angeles that has shaped so much my life and also the lives of so many other environmental and sustainability people here in Los Angeles, California, and around the world. I also want to mention that earlier we had a different guest announced here that unfortunately couldn't be with us, and I couldn't be more pleased to have David Abel to joining us on behalf of VerdeXchange. He's the chairman, and he's gonna share a lot more about the conference and who he is and how this came about. I know that a lot of you probably don't know much about this conference. And this is my personal invitation to join the conversation and to spread the word. We are beautiful social media communities so that this conference can continue growing and really planting more seeds of sustainability here in our area. So today we have building a sustainable future, and is the perspectives from David Abel from VerdeXchange. So with no further ado, let me introduce you all to David. Hi, David. Welcome.
Well, hi, Oprah. How are you? Aura. Okay.
Well, it's so exciting to have you because I know you now for many years, I'll say, and you're somebody that is very admired in my community of sustainability, of investments on sustainable infrastructure and environmental stewardship. And I know that you don't do a lot of interviews, so I'm very excited. I'm very honored that you're here. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm honored to be with you, Aura. And your persistence and intelligence and this opportunity is something I can't pass up. So let's do it.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to start by saying that the first time I met you was I was a young commissioner for Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, just very newly appointed, with a lot of wonderful ideas. And you called me to invite me to be a speaker at VerdeXchange. And when I first saw the roster of speakers at VerdeXchange, I was like, wow, I'm really with the heavy hitters here, and I got the pleasure to be with, with Mary Nichols, for example, who has been somebody that is been very involved with this conference. And, with my fellow other commissioner, Bill Vanderberg, and many others. But a lot of I don't even know personally the history of you came about with this idea of hosting VerdeXchange. So I would love to invite you to tell us a little bit about how did this conference came about.
All right, delighted to do that. It was 17 years ago. Seems like a long time ago, and it certainly was a long time ago in the beginnings of the climate change, clean energy movement. Um, I had just exited being part of a larger transportation company, and some people came to me and said, "Can you help fill the vacuum at the convention center? We just lost the convention, and we'd like to do it around the climate sustainability world." And I said, well, if this gives me a chance to get to really understand what my son's doing, who was then deeply involved in getting involved in the climate movement, then I'll do it. And we pulled together some people, and we started. Actually, our advisors were the people that ran the Apple conferences. They became our partners, and we took over the uh, Century Plaza, and we had a pretty international show. And we brought together market makers. We call market makers people making decisions in the market on energy, water, transport, finance. And it was a pretty lively conversation. And then my partners said, "This is really good. We want to take it back east." And I said, "No, I'm too old to go back east. I really love LA. I'll do it myself here in LA." And we began to build a relationship with all those players. So we'd like to say the crux of our conference is bringing the best people we can find to talk about what's in market, about to be in market, and needed in market in all those sectors, in energy, water, transport, Finance and Green Bill. And we found you, who were a young commissioner at the Department of Water and Power, the largest publicly owned utility in North America, and brought a fresh perspective and a real commitment. And you joined a conversation with a bunch of old timers, and you brought life and energy and perspective, and that's how it began.
Wow, wonderful. I didn't even know that this was the humble beginnings of VerdeXchange. It's interesting to hear you,
Yeah.
talk about it. But for those that are watching us right now that are wondering, well, okay, but what is Verde Exchange? How would you define what Verde Exchange is?
Well, let me just tell you a story about the name, because when we started it, there happened to be a new mayor elected in LA named Antonio Villaraigosa.
Hmm.
My partner said, well, let's call it the Green Exchange because you're very interested in the market. And I said, no, in honor of Antonio, we should call it the Verde Exchange. And
Mm.
the name came about. So the concept again was um, there are many conferences in California and around the globe that deal with climate as a word, as a policy, as an idea. We were very interested in how to change the way people make their decisions in the marketplace to adopt or to invent or to manage enterprises to transition what they're doing in energy, transition what they're doing in the built environment. So this conference always began with a sense that the marketplace is an interesting place to look at. If
Hmm.
policy impacts the marketplace, we're definitely interested in policy. But we're interested in that behavior by leadership in the public sector, environmentalists, owners of utilities and engineering firms. They were our focus because we wanted to lift the level of consciousness about what could be done. And we've been doing that since. Antonio always corrects me as I say Verde Exchange, because sometimes I don't say it properly. But it's been an interesting journey with in the context that he gave us. And it's been a global involvement. We've had international involvement from day one. We, in fact, opened our conference at the residence of Japan's Consul General for the last decade. We have dinners hosted by Canada. We have Korea, Europeans, Africa, all have been involved in our conference because they're all along the same trajectory and they see California as a pace setter and they're looking for signals and ideas from California and they're looking for markets for their foreign direct investment. And it's been a nice marriage.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you're mentioning this because I think this is the first sustainability environmental policy conference that I attended that also has such strong ties with the international community. I've been to the events in the in the Japanese embassy and the um, Canadian also. And it's interesting to see the incredible conversations that happen when you put all these different minds and perspectives together and the kind of collaboration that also is fostered. So I think that beyond what you see in the conference, you can have so much more when you attend all the other satellite events, that happen at Verde Exchange that, continue the conversation and moving the needle. So that's interesting. So if you guys are just joining us, we are live in on social media with David Abel. He is the chairman of Verde Exchange. This year, Verde Exchange is starting on Sunday. For a few days here in Los Angeles. We encourage you to learn more about Verde Exchange at verdeexchange.org. You can also ask your questions right now about what the conference is about or what are some of the topics that that you would like to see in the conference, by typing it in the comments and we can bring the questions here for David. Um, David, what have been some of the most surprising topics, conversations that you have seen flourish at Verde Exchange in all these years that you have been hosting this conference?
Well, there are a couple stories I could tell. I mean, we've had somewhere between 40 and 50 panels every year, four concurrent sessions, plenaries, all in those sectors of energy, water, transport, and finance. And as an organizer, I've helped put them in place, but I can't be at all places at all times. And sometimes I skip the ones that I really didn't understand, like batteries or hydrogen or whatever. And I knew they were important, and we brought the right people together, but I go to the stuff I knew better. All of a sudden, some of the things that I didn't pay attention to years ago have begun to take over my conference. And I'll give you one example: hydrogen. Now, I knew hydrogen. I took chemistry 100 years ago, but
Hmm.
all of a sudden, I have 25 executives from Japan who are part of the Japanese Hydrogen Forum coming to my conference, meeting with California leadership, Australia, um, Canada. All the countries have hydrogen policies now, and they're looking for hydrogen to be a replacement of what we're doing for fossil fuels. And it's
Hmm.
fascinating how at first I paid no attention, then I paid a little bit of attention, and now I have to fend them off from taking over my entire conference. It's that dynamic. And the federal government just awarded one of $7 billion grants to California for a hydrogen hub, and we're spending a lot of time on that. But that's a pittance against what private funding is going into that sector. So these things just take off. On the other hand, people came to me years ago and said, "We got a breakthrough in batteries. It's going to happen tomorrow. You need to have a panel." I'm still waiting for the breakthrough. So there are
Wow.
different things going on at different times, and you and I are both interested in utilities and the built
Hmm.
environment and decarbonizing the housing and built environment. We have plenty of opportunities for that. We've had a long relationship with the Urban Land Institute in that regard, and in fact, you're leading a panel in another area. You're leading a panel about parks and place and possible legacies from the upcoming Olympic Games in 2028 for Los Angeles, and it's a fascinating area. We're going to talk about on that panel what's happening in Expo Park, which is truly dynamic. Andrea Ambres will be part of that. She's the head of that, and I
Yeah.
suggest if you haven't been down Expo Park in a number of years, you won't recognize it, and you certainly won't recognize it in 2028. But it's only one of a number of investments being made that hopefully will be a strong legacy of the 2028 games.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to talk about this green space parks exposition park, which is going to be, like you said, transformative for Los Angeles too, and in the Olympics. And as someone that has been very involved in local policy and politics, I see, for example, Los Angeles being a place that has become quite dense with very little open space and parks available for people. So I became very intrigued about,
Sure.
about open spaces and green spaces and park, but not just as a place where you can go walk. We needed that in the pandemic. We all learned that we needed space where we could just get out of the house and do something alone, but also as a place where we could produce power, empower communities, like community solar or solar for all. The folks that follow me have heard me talk about this, the solar for renters programs and such, but also as a place where we're gonna need refuge at some point with the increasing heat and mitigating the effects of climate change, specifically in low income communities. How do we make these spaces places where there's resiliency so people can go and weather the heat, or who knows, or the rain, or whatever it is, and places where we're going to have microgrid technology, and meaning solar battery where people can go charge their phones because maybe we're going to lose power. Who knows, guys? It's climate change. It's the climate crisis. So
Well, I can see that you learned a lot as a commissioner of LADWP. I can hear it in the language that you're sharing. But you could also talk about, and we will at our conference, what's going to happen with bus shelters of the future. That
yes.
includes not only shading, but real time data collection and sharing with customers about travelers who want to understand that system better and use it more effectively. There's a
Absolutely.
tributary question, which is what's happening to our curbs in the 21st century? I mean, there's a huge competition for that curb space, whether it's shared ride vehicles or buses or walking or pedestrian access, or there's a ton of things going on in the curbs. And I love to I love to hold a panel about that because it's easier to talk about than do it. So we're very into that space. But bus shelters alone is a topic unto itself.
Absolutely. And I have somebody here, Indy Richie, is saying we need to plant more trees and supporting the mature ones too. And tree canopy is going to be
Sure,
super important for
sure,
heat island effect.
sure.
But I'm also, going back to the conversation about hydrogen, because in a lot of the spaces where I'm part of, hydrogen is viewed as something that is going to be necessary for aviation. How we're going to power airplanes in a way that is doesn't release so much CO2 in the air. um Big fleet like trucks, buses, things like that. But there's a lot of people that have a very antagonistic idea about hydrogen because the amount of water that it uses. So I hope that at VerdeXchange we get to discuss how this technology has advanced, or how is it that it's going to have an impact to our to another type of impact to our environment. So
I promise it will. I promise it will. I promise it will. Um, I just want to make a comment about your experience and commitment. I know it's an interview with me, but in this process of these 17 years, I've begun to really appreciate the challenges to public leadership in making changes that require change of behavior, of decision making, and those public policy members who are willing to step up and be visionary and persistent and articulate and bring their people along when it does require a change of habits. And they're not as plentiful as you think. There's a lot of them, but those that really step forward and try to do it increasingly aren't honored as much as they should be, because I can tell you they make a difference. They made a difference in these 17 years. You've made a difference. So I think
mm,
I think the people on this podcast ought to recognize that stepping into that challenge, it's a special opportunity, and special people really take advantage of it.
well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think for those that follow me and are part of my broader community, they know that they can trust that I'm going to do the homework and bring both sides to the coin. And at the end of the day, I'm going to stand for what I believe, which is sometimes not a very popular idea or take, but they know that they can trust that I'm gonna stand for
Right.
for what I believe. And a topic that I don't really talk much about, and I actually had a lot of experience at DWP, is like water issues. And all of these issues are interrelated. And at VerdeXchange, I'm excited to see the panel on the water's future and the recycled water programs here. And I know that you're going to have David Ahai, who was another LADWP general manager, even Mark Gold, who is with NRDC, but he was also at UCLA. And Liz Crosson, who I also met, she worked with Mayor Garcetti, and she's the executive director of LA San. Wait, no, hold on. She's the Chief Sustainability Resiliency Innovation Officer for Metropolitan Water District Responder, which I think a lot of the people that follow me don't know all of these agencies. But guys, if I can tell you, if you're listening to me, I promise I'll do another interview about water issues, and other stuff. But at Verde, since you're going to have things about transportation too, which is awesome.
Yeah, but you forgot Barbara Romero, who's someone you know and some people listening to this should know, because she's head of sanitation, the public works member. She used to be with the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. Very special person, very difficult challenges to decide how to recycle water instead of importing it from hundreds of miles away. It's a major commitment. It's a change of practice and habit, and it's expensive. And we're building probably the largest recycling facility in North America as we do this podcast. And
I
I
know.
want
It's
you to say
exciting.
very few people know about it.
I know. And Barbara, I have such a sweet story about her, and I'm so glad that you highlighting her, especially because she's someone that is very special to my heart. When I became appointed commissioner, she was someone that was very encouraging of my ideas and of my hard work. and she always had my back. So Barbara is somebody indeed very special in our, in our sphere here in sustainability and politics. She's, and everyone that I have spoken to about Barbara Romero has such beautiful things to say. And LA Sanitation, guys, is it's a super important agency for Angelinos. I mean, they deal with all of our waste and like water and like a lot of other stuff. So they're doing a lot of innovating things, and the recycled water is one, and I'm like super excited to learn more.
Well, there you
Okay.
go.
Well, let's see. Which one do you think is gonna be the, which, if people need to pick a track or a topic for the conference, what would you say is one that they should, for sure, if you're gonna come to VerdeXchange, this is the track you should like learn
So you mean
and check
which of,
out.
which of your children do you love the best? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
Kind
uh,
of.
I would say the virtue of, I'm not answering it directly, but I am answering it. I think the beauty of the conference, as we've defined it and described it and built it, is that you're forced to interact across the silos. You're coming
Mhm.
out of a water panel and running into a hydrogen panel or a transportation panel or a panel on batteries, and they're all actually connected. And the conversations are richer for being interfacing with people that you don't always hang around with, and not just in
Mhm.
your sector. So I think the hallway is the best place to be, Aura. That's what I'm trying to say. The panels are terrific. I'm not underplaying the panels, but to come out in the hallways and to catch people now learning about what they're doing and to put it together in your own combination, very LA like. Very LA like. We put things together in LA. It's not set out for us like a table. You have to put your life together here, and that's what this conference symbolizes. That's what's really great about this conference.
Uh, Totally. And I know that you're gonna have Mayor Karen Bass there. And
Well, she's promised, but you never know what's going to come up.
exactly.
Let's
You
say
never know. But
if
you have some very heavy hitters here as part of, you have the CEO of Metro also,
right,
which is gonna be, but Fiona Ma, which is our state treasurer, she's
right,
gonna be part of the conference. Leanne Raldolph, who I know, for a long time now, California Air Resource Board. And if you don't know what the CARB or California Air Resource Board is, they regulate our air, make sure that it's clean and is, good for us. And they also deal with cap and trade, which is a policy that I should do a whole interview. I should interview Mary Nichols about it. Here at some point, she was the mastermind behind it. Let's see who else. I mean, so many incredible, speakers here that you're going to have.
probably
uh,
be there'll be able to be 170 panelists over the 2.5 days. So there, a lot of them are from California, but some, as we've noted, all from all over the world. And they actually come to California because this is an interesting place. It's a pace setter for a lot of these trends. So we've had panels on blue tech, what's happening in the ocean. And there's a lot happening in the ocean. In fact, the last day of the conference is out at Alta Sea at the port of LA, near the port of LA, where they're looking at the exploration of the sea and new technologies related to the sea and education. And we're taking a boat trip in San Pedro Bay, looking at what both ports are doing. There's just a very dynamic opportunity here to grasp what's happening in LA that isn't about a trial, it isn't about a song, it isn't about a movie. It's just a dynamic LA in motion, changing the paradigm for how we live our lives.
and when does the conference start? I know it starts in Mother's Days, and I know some people were like, "I'm not gonna be there this Sunday." So
Yeah,
what?
my
Yes.
my wife said the same thing. Uh, we really started late afternoon on that Sunday for an opening reception for speakers and VIP guests, but the conference really is Monday the 13th and Tuesday the 14th, and a little bit of Wednesday the 15th out on the harbor. So Mother's Day is a challenge. It certainly is in my family, but I think it's a way late in the afternoon for us the speakers to get to know one another and prepare for the 500 to 800 people that'll be with us during those other days.
Wonderful. Okay, so you all been warned. You got to come and check it out Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be potentially posting some stuff on my social media so you guys can get a sneak peek. But I just got a comment from Julia Potter. She was Season Sustainability chief sustainability. She now retired, but she's been a very big supporter of mine and wonderful person. So she's asking, what do you think will be the most impactful change in the next 2 years?
Well, I think if she's with CSUN, by the way, we have a panel with educational leaders in the conference. I've always been interested in that. If I said decarbonizing cement, you would probably turn off 90% of the people on this podcast. But it's a fascinating challenge,
Mhm.
and we're heavily engaged in that conversation. And there's a woman named Sarah Neff who's amazing in this space. She now works for an Australian developer, but she's been in the role of chief sustainability officer her whole life since she left Stanford. And she teaches me every day about what's happening with the building decarbonization and how to overcome the challenges that are there to change the way we build our facilities and maintain them. So I say if you're interested in facilities, you need to be at that panel.
Wow, awesome. Well, I mean, yes. And I think for me personally, what I think is going to be the most impactful change, I mean, all of us together, collectively need to figure out how to decarbonize the grid and also reduce greenhouse gases at all costs. So if you bike, if you have an EV car, if you use less plastic, if you write to your legislature, I think all of those things are going to be extremely important because one action might feel like it's not enough, but I think when we all do it together, is it really is impactful. So would love to see more of that. And I think I saw in my Instagram people talk about oceans. That if we're gonna have any conversations regarding oceans at VerdeXchange.
We have in the past, and we're going to have some conversation about offshore wind, and we're going to have a heavy conversation about what's happening at the ports. But this year, we have not we've not had our blue tech panel this year because we've been overwhelmed with what's happening in energy, transportation, and water. That's the truth of it. But does it deserve attention? Absolutely. And for those who are interested, come back next year and convince me to do this panel.
That's right. I think, David, I'm gonna propose to you at some point that maybe we should do, like a crowdsource a panel where people choose what panel they want to see. So we can kind of let
Yeah,
people also be part of the curating the conference of sorts.
I agree. And I'd love to get that kind of feedback. And I'd love to all your podcast viewers to listeners to pitch the LA Times to do a better job of covering this dynamic sector.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's been wonderful having you here, being part of the conversation. I end my conversations with guests, and I ask them, that to share a fun fact about them. We talk about very serious issues here and topics, and what's a fun fact?
Well, all right. I'll give you one. My kindergarten teacher shared a note with my mother some 75 years ago and said, David will always have his finger in every pie. And I think that's the way I've lived my life. Um, so I'm a very eclectic guy, and I love putting things together that are Rubik's Cube like puzzles. And that's a real way of understanding who I am and who I've always been.
Thank you so much for being here with us. I encourage everyone that is listening and that watched this conversation to go to VerdeXchange.org and check out the panels, the speakers, and join the conversation this week. David, thank you so much. And I hope that we have you back, sometime soon.
Thank you, Aura. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. And if you guys were listening to this conversation, thank you so much. If you got the opportunity to watch live, thank you for sticking with us for all this half hour. Please become a member of my Patreon today. Is at Aura Vasquez. We have some other very interesting curated conversations there, and you might be able to be part of the conversation and propose speakers and such. I want to give so much love to my Instagram community and all my social media community that have been with me. Thank you so much for all the love. The Danny Green, thank you so much for being a big supporter always. And please stay tuned if you want to hear the repeat of this conversation. You can join my social media. You can follow me at Aura Vasquez Official, or you can join my Patreon today at Aura Vasquez. All right, guys, it's been a wonderful to see you. And until the next one, thank you so much. Bye bye.